So much talk about SMU and Miami, but what's Clemson's path to maybe sneaking back into the ACC Championship game?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On this episode, we'll talk about Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach. He's got a weird thing that he does or doesn't do after losses. SMU, are they on top of the ACC power rankings now, given recent events? But let's talk about that ACC championship path, because he's Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. SMU now on top of the ACC standings. They're the only team without a conference loss at 5-0. Clemson and Miami. Clemson technically second place now in the conference, but Miami holds a tiebreaker over to Clemson if it comes to that. So Miami and SMU are the teams that control their own destiny for an ACC championship berth. And if you're Clemson, you really need to be rooting against Miami, because one loss by SMU does not help you because of the tiebreaker. Whereas Miami, if they suffer their second conference loss, that might open up that door for Dabo.
Well, question, Dono. Who does Miami have left on their schedule?
Wake Forest, after they got bye week, then Wake Forest, then Syracuse, who's not looking so hot lately.
Are you concerned about either one of those teams?
I mean, I'll be honest. Given the way Miami's been playing offense, not defense, I'm a little bit concerned about anybody, but they shouldn't lose either of those games.
And I get it, but we all know the old adage: styles don't make fight, or fighters don't make fights, styles make fights. And either one of those teams have the facilities on the ground to execute the Georgia Tech game plan of this is it, pounding, punching on you. You're gonna get punched on. That's what this game is gonna be. I don't think so. I just don't think so, but we shall see. So I think Miami can be a little bit comfortable in terms of the fans. Now, man, the team, get your asses on them donuts and tackle. Yeah. Learn to get somebody on the ground. I mean, this ain't two-hand touch. I get it. The game is not what it once was, right? We've got all types of abilities for all types of things. I understand that, but you got to make a tackle. You've got to be able to do that.
Now, I think something that we've learned, especially in the ACCs, this league is crazy. If you start looking at, well, hey, if this team wins out, winning out is not easy. We were saying that about Miami. Miami lost a game. I mean, SMU couldn't lose last weekend because they didn't play last weekend. They still have 3 ACC games left. Miami's got 2. Clemson, though, only has 1 ACC game left, and that's against the Pitt Panthers team that, hey, a couple weeks ago, you probably would have said, hey, Pitt maybe has a decent shot to upset Clemson at home. Pitt has lost 2 straight, most recently to Virginia. They lost to SMU and wasn't close prior to that. So 23rd ranked Clemson at 18th ranked Pitt this weekend. Clemson Tigers are 10-point favorites on the road. Can Pitt bounce back and start at least playing defense the way that they were playing a few weeks ago, and maybe Eli Holstein can find a bit of a resurrection?
The thing that's always so confusing about Pitt to me, teams don't have to figure out Pitt. If you know football, you know Narduzzi is good. There are 3 things guaranteed in this world: death, taxes, Narduzzi going cover 4. That's it. Yeah. He is who he is. I have never seen some crazy schematic change from Narduzzi. I'm like, hey, don't get me wrong. I've seen wrinkles where I'm like, oh, okay, Pat, I see you getting a little frisky. I see you being a little different. But for the most part, that team is who they are. The linebackers are going to be coming downhill at the snap of the ball. They're going to be ready to knock somebody's stuff loose. That is who Pitt is. So to see them kind of fall apart late is like, it's a little confusing. Now, offensively, they did get off the gates hot. with their new offensive coordinator, who I believe is from Western Carolina. Do you know how good a job got to be for you to choose to leave your dad? Do you know how good that job has to be? But
Yeah.
they looked amazing to start the season off. We were talking about Eli Holstein and renaming the Rookie of the Year award after him, but it seems like teams are starting to catch on to what they're doing offensively. But the defense ain't helping much either. They aren't generating takeaways, and you know, they aren't doing their hard thumping downhill style of defense like they always have. So I think Pitt, they don't have the maturity to have lost one game and bounce back and say, you know what, that one game's behind us. We're going to be professionals about this and move on. But I don't think that they can get this done against Clemson. I just don't think they can circle the wagon.
All right, so they're really mathematically, there's really only 3 contenders left for 2 spots in the ACC Championship game. SMU, they're really in the driver's seat right now because, like I mentioned, even if they do lose one of their remaining 3 games, they hold a tiebreaker over Clemson. So Clemson would need Miami to lose 1 game, assuming Clemson. Now, Clemson doesn't literally have to win out because they only have 1 ACC game left out of their 3 remaining games. They've got Pittsburgh this weekend, like we mentioned, and then, you know, they've got games against the Citadel and South Carolina, which do not count against the ACC standing. So Clemson needs to win this weekend and hope that either Miami loses once or that SMU loses twice. Now, let's take a look at the remaining. SMU's got 3 games left, all ACC games, Kenton. They are at number 8, or sorry, they already beat Pitt. They're home against Boston College. They're at Virginia. Virginia spiced things up by beating Pitt last week. Maybe now we don't count them out. And then they're home against Cal. And like Cal, you know, they finally won an ACC game against Wake Forest. So the degree of difficulty was not that high, but Cal has played everybody close this year. So, I mean, is there any chance? I don't think so, but is there any chance SMU loses 2 out of their next 3?
No, because even if you were to think about those 3 teams, either way you cut it or slice it, you're going to have to lose to one of these teams, at least one. Cal, Boston College. Who's the 3rd team they have?
Hold on. Let me pull the schedule out. Virginia.
Yeah, Cal, Boston College.
Yeah.
Virginia, they're showing that they're on the ascent. They're going in the right way. Yeah. Boston College just benched their only hope. And not to mention, not only did they bench their only hope, upon watching that offense all year and going back and saying, what's going on here? Yeah. Bill O'Brien is exactly who I thought he was. He's exactly who I thought he was. Everybody wants to tell me I was wrong. They beat Florida State. But is he not exactly? I said Bill O'Brien is a famous mismanager of talent. Thomas Castellanos had 1,000 yards rushing last year, Dono. 1,000. Yeah. You know how many he has so far this year?
I don't.
They only got about 2-3 games left. 194.
Yeah, because they don't. Bill O'Brien doesn't let him run. Well, and let me ask you about this, because you brought up this topic, and it was earlier on Tuesday. Bill O'Brien, like, he not only definitively announced that Castellanos is not their starting quarterback anymore. Now they benched him last week, and they won the game with Grayson James after he replaced them. So O'Brien announces that Grayson James is the new starting quarterback. We obviously know Castellanos is more talented, more experienced. We don't think he's being used the right way. Now let's talk about the flip side of it, because another part of Bill O'Brien's announcement was that, you know, Castellanos is not taking the benching well, and he's going to be away from the team for a couple of days. Now, I'm sure there's more to this story. We don't know how that conversation went, and, you know, people are assuming Castellanos is going to end up in the transfer portal. He probably will. He probably should, because this is not an offense he's going to thrive in. But the idea of taking time away from the team, I've seen responses to that. You know, fans calling Castellanos soft. He's not a team player. And I get it. It looks that way on the surface. So, I mean, and, you know, you played at NC State. You know, you've been in high level collegiate locker rooms before. What was your reaction when you heard not only Castellanos being benched, but that he's going to take some time away from the team?
Being benched, I knew it was going to be an inevitable, because, again, Bill O'Brien is who he is, man. I very seriously, and I'm so, I mean this from the deepest part of my soul. If I could find someone who could pitch me to companies as good as his agent is pitching him to these teams, I would be the CEO of Microsoft already. It would be me up in those boardrooms making super decisions like, oh yeah, let's totally do that. I know nothing about this, but let's do it anyway. At the end of the day, you have taken away, when we watched Florida State get beat by Boston College, how did Boston College do it, Donald? Did they do it through the air? Did they do it airing it out and letting Castellanos hit guys that were wide open?
Did it on the ground?
They did it on the ground. Not only did they do it on the ground, they did it with him on the ground. He closed that game out with his legs. I'm telling everybody right now, Bill O'Brien is exactly who I always thought he was. I would be surprised. And when I say surprised, I mean genuinely shocked if that team ends up winning 9 or 10 games during his tenure. Honestly, during his tenure at all, I'd be shocked. Now, in terms of Castellanos and the stepping away thing, I mean, it's just nasty business. I mean, the worst part is Bill O'Brien has a tendency to do this. He has a tendency to run off top talent in the NFL. Do you know how hard it is to run off top talent when they're literally in a contract that says your tail got to stay right here? But he has a tendency to do that. So I'm more lenient with Castellanos in this situation than I would be in most, because one of these two parties has a clear history of, we're going to trade one of the best wide receivers in the game for David Johnson. That's what one of these parties has a history of. So, I would be a little bit more lenient with that, but always be a professional. You never know who's in the room. You never know what you've been doing. When you're dealing with the good, when you're dealing with the bad, I'm not going to say I was perfect about that, because I myself found myself in situations where I was upset about things that weren't happening and did not handle it 100% correct. But never, ever, ever do things in a way that requires you to step away from the team. At the end of the day, it's about the team. It's about the wins. It's not the Fighting O'Briens. It's not the Fighting Castellanos. It is the BC Eagles. That's who you are. That's what needs to be at the forefront at all times.
We got so much more to come here on Locked On ACC, including I had the opportunity today on Locked On Canes to speak to a great former all-time Miami Hurricane, Clinton Portis, 2-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro. Now, I spoke with CP about a number of things, including his view as a running back about Miami's D not being able to stop any running back or quarterback from running the football. So I'd like you guys to be able to hear what Clinton Portis had to say about it. And we're going to talk about the weird ritual of Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, who just lost to Boston College. You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Locked On ACC fans, listen up. You need to download the Roy app. You've heard us talk about Roy this season and how they're revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fan, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if that player transfers. Roy is helping us keep our team intact, and that's actually good for the game long term. Folks, our Roy player of the week this week is Fernando Mendoza. We're going to throw some money into his account on Roy, the starting quarterback at Cal. They finally got their first ACC win. He threw for 385 yards. He's an incredible young man and an awesome quarterback. And I'm happy we can throw in for Fernando Mendoza. So, guys, you can show your support by depositing a little appreciation into his account. To do that on the Roy app, you can see what the logo looks like here if you're watching us on YouTube, or go to joinroy.com. It all adds up, and it's going to help all your favorite players stay put. So join us in showing some love for Fernando Mendoza of Cal. Download the Roy app or go to joinroy.com today. Use promo code LOCKEDON. Every athlete from every team is there. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. Roy, support the players. Change the game. Now, Kenton Gibbs, by the way, we're here on Locked On ACC. Alex Dono from Locked On Canes alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I thought you brought up a good point about now, Miami's defense was inexcusable against Georgia Tech. The offense was not clicking well enough to bail the defense out as they usually do. But you brought up a point about the stylistic matchup, and we knew this was the game plan going in for Georgia Tech. I was watching Haynes King, their quarterback on ACC Network, who admitted this was the game plan, was to keep Miami's offense off the field, keep Cam Ward off the field as much as possible, bludgeon Miami with the run, which moves the clock. They beat Miami 35 to 25 minutes in the time of possession game. And after watching that, I had a chance this morning, Kenton, to speak with Clinton Portis, part of the greatest team, in my opinion, the greatest college team of all time. Some would argue that, but the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, and Clinton, who, watches every Miami game intently. In fact, his son, a 2026 recruit, is committed to the Miami Hurricanes. He broke down to me why Miami couldn't stop Georgia Tech, despite the fact that they knew exactly going in what the Yellow Jackets were going to do.
So when you give up your edges, you got to go with the wide edges at times. It's constant getting into the backfield and you're running to no man's land, like you just going with your eyes closed instead of making that adjustment. And then when you're playing two high safeties that allow the edges, the rock and roll or getting down in the box is really no reason to play too high when you're playing a running team. You need that extra man in the box so you could protect the edges and make teams beat you. You can't give up everything. Like, except being, hey, if they're going to beat us, they have to beat us doing this. And if I know they have to do this, my players on the back end get an opportunity to say, oh, this is the only way they can beat me right here. So maybe I can jump this route because this is what they have to do at some point. And you don't really get that. We're not really taking things away. You had 3rd and 15 conversions, 3rd and 8 conversions. You're not getting off the field on 3rd down.
Yeah, so I thought he summed it up pretty well, Kenton, that it's why a lot of Miami fans are not only looking to the personnel, but also looking to the defensive coaching, which just hasn't had enough answers this year.
You know what I find interesting? There is a saying going around right now. It's a saying that's fairly new in the football lexicon, because before, this was the default. This was not the exception as it is today. You know what that saying is, Dono?
What?
Run the damn ball. When you see too high, guess what that means? Let's do the math, shall we, Dono? You got too high, you got 2 corners at minimum. That means that you got how many in the box? You just took away 4 from 11. What does that math equal, Dono?
You got 7 left.
7 left. You have to cover both A gaps, both B gaps, both C gaps, and potentially any other extra gaps that are added in a gap scheme. If the quarterback runs the ball, what just happened to the math? It's not in your favor anymore because you have multiple guys adding in to the math. Yeah. Running too high against a team whose quarterback cannot throw the ball is absolutely coaching malpractice.
Yeah, agreed.
That is absolutely. If I was Coach Cristobal, I would have gone up to my defensive coordinator and I would have said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but there's a guy over there named Aaron Philo. Aaron Philo was not the backup, Dono, because that was Pyron, correct? Pyron was the backup, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Philo was the 3rd string guy.
And a true freshman.
If the 18-year-old, if the kid that was slow dancing at prom a few months ago is going to beat us, if this receiver group is going to beat us, in the words of Rio the Young OG, and I'm fine with that. But you know what I'm not going to let beat us? Jamal Haynes King, walk-on running backs, because they're just physical, downhill every time. And we have no answer because for some reason it makes sense to us to say, We need that second safety deep, just in case. Just in case what? Yeah, it's foolishness. It's foolishness. Miami earned this loss, honestly. And Virginia, and Georgia Tech earned this win.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think Miami is heading into a bye week at a good time because they have a lot to reflect on, and at least there's going to be nothing lackadaisical about this bye week coming up because they need to take a look in the mirror, and they still have everything in front of them. And we talked about it on yesterday's episode. Like, Miami lost control of their own destiny for like 5 hours because Pittsburgh then went out there and lost and handed it right back to Miami. So the odds are still that we'll likely see an SMU versus Miami ACC Championship game, but Miami's got to take care of their business first. Syracuse did not take care of their business over the weekend, and I feel kind of sorry for Fran Brown's family. We will explain why after this. You want to keep it locked right here to this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Guys, we've been having a great time. We've been winning money on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, that happens to all of us, right? You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. And live betting is awesome. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton hosts Locked On Wolfpack. Unfortunately, both of our teams, I cover the Canes on Locked On Canes, both of our teams suffered an L over the weekend. So we've had plenty to talk about these first couple of days of the week, and we will continue as we roll on during this college football season. Now, Syracuse suffered a loss, and I'm watching this really bizarre post-game press conference from Syracuse head coach Fran Brown, who I really like. I mean, I think he's a good recruiter, good football coach. He's trying to turn Syracuse back into the right direction. They've had some tough years football-wise, but he talks about after a loss, like he was so distraught, he says he doesn't shower after a loss. Quote, "I don't deserve soap," he said. Winners get washed, in the words of Fran Brown. Now, I feel like the real losers here are anyone who shares a household with Fran Brown after that loss to Boston College and then the other losses they've suffered. That he probably didn't shower for weeks after the Stanford loss. That was a really tough one. And I feel bad for, anyone who shares an office or a hallway with Fran Brown. I mean, Kenton, can we get the man some soap, please? Can Syracuse bounce back and win a football game now?
I'm so disappointed in Fran Brown. Because let me just say something. This ain't us. Okay? Francis Aloysius Brown. I don't know if you watched this or not, but I need you to lock in with me. I need you to get locked in with me. You understand? Take your stinking ass to the shower after a loss. The stench of defeat is tangible literally with you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Ew. Gross. What do you mean winners get washed? So if there's a losing streak of some sort, what does that look like? If you lose the last game of the season, what does that look like, Francis?
Kenton, I hope previous Syracuse coach Dino Babers, I hope he didn't go by that rule, because in the Babers era, they would win 6 and then drop 6 was how that usually went.
Let me tell you something, Fran. I'm rooting for you big time. I'm rooting for you. I hope you succeed. I hope you do all the great things and, bring Syracuse back to the days when they had Ernie Davis and Jim Brown rolling through that thing. I hope you bring it back to the glory days of McNabb and what was it? Freeney? Was Freeney from there, I believe?
Oh, he was from there. I remember. Yeah, Dwight Freeney. What a player. Yeah.
I hope you bring him back to that type of relevance.
Yeah.
But my brother in Christ, this ain't the way. This ain't the way. The stench of losing is supposed to be that the jokes aren't as funny, the ice isn't as cold, the food ain't as good, the girls ain't as pretty, all that type of stuff. That's what the stench of losing. It's not supposed to be a physical stench. Fran, come on, man. Come on. Like, washing is a right that you have that you need to exercise every day. Get in the shower and don't just hit the hot spots. Don't just let the water run down to your feet. Thoroughly get every part of your body, Fran. Come on, with a wash rag. Don't you dare put a hand in the body. Use a wash rag with it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like I'm actually surprised by this line, Kenton, given that, but I guess maybe I should follow my own words as saying, hey, Cal, who finally won an ACC game, even their losses were all really close, but I was actually really surprised. Cal are 8.5-point favorites against Syracuse this weekend. The game is at Cal, but it's not in the middle of the night. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So Syracuse they're getting 8.5 points against Cal. Is Fran Brown going to be able to shower after that one?
He better be. Imagine that flight back. Imagine that stench, that funk. You don't even take a bird bath. He said, I brush my teeth because I don't want y'all saying my breast teeth. Brother, I'm sorry to tell the breath is the least of your concerns. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong. Yes, brush your teeth every day, twice a day at minimum too. Yes,
absolutely. Sure. Yeah,
but,
floss.
But there's something worse than your breath stinking that you're walking right up to. That, if you tell me I got to choose between the two, give me the bad breath every time, every day of the week. Because when those other parts get to parting as a grown man, come on, Fran, don't do this. Don't do this. And I'm an extremely competitive guy now. I'm so competitive. My ex-girlfriend made me go on dates with her to do things I was bad at so I could learn to lose with grace. That was something.
Gosh, wow.
Yeah, it was a terrible experience. That's why she's my ex now. I'm joking.
Were you dating a sports psychologist? Like that seems like a very deep way to get through to you.
Well, no, she was also a former Division I athlete. So it kind of she understood the psyche of the maniac that was up there. But Fran, come on, man. Come on home, Fran. You don't got to live like this. You don't got to live like this. You are at a team that historically is under a 600 winning percentage, okay? Yeah. There's no need. There's no need to guarantee yourself that many showerless nights. Let's reel it back in.
Well, I feel like I need a shower after all this talk. We got a great week of shows still to come here on Locked On ACC. We'll start to look at the games coming up this weekend because you've got a handful of teams that need a win to be bowl eligible before the season is done. We've got the evolving ACC Championship picture. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you subscribe if you're liking what you're seeing on YouTube, you're liking what you're hearing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we will talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.